it's still pretty unclear whether or not the UK will be leaving at the end of this month, because it is all down to the negotiations which are going to be taking place over the next couple of days, not with Brussels in the European Parliament or the European Commission, but here in Westminster with MPs. Theresa May is fighting on two fronts. She had that historic defeat the last time her withdrawal agreement was in the House of Commons, when over 100 of her own MPs voted against it. Those are the kind of hard Brexiteers, the ERG group led by the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson, and she is trying to win them over. Now, there has been some concessions that they've put out on the weekend, that they're softening their position on her withdrawal agreement, because she is hammering the message to them that if they don't vote for her withdrawal agreement, then it could see that delay kicking in and the possibility that Brexit could be scuppered, especially with Labour now supporting a second referendum. But she's also fighting to try and pick away some of the Labour MPs, particularly in northern seats which voted for Brexit. She's announced this morning a £1.6 billion development fund, which seems to be targeted at those specific seats, with some people saying it's a bribe to try to get those Labour MPs to back her deal. And she needs their support because the margins are so tight. She only has a very small majority, even less than last time, because she's lost some MPs to the independent group. So she's definitely going to be pushing this message, and as we're about to hear from Liam Fox, that a delay to Brexit could happen, and she hopes that'll focus minds for next week.
One thing that we know is that the European Union does not want Britain to fight the European elections, and to have the next European Parliament having a large group of disgruntled British MEPs there who are unlikely to be very constructive in the process. So all the indications are they don't want that to happen. The indications from the European Court are that they would interpret it as being a one-off and short extension.
That was Liam Fox, the UK Trade Minister and a Brexiteer. Vincent, as of last week, we have Labour's official position. It is backing a second referendum. But are Labour MPs' hearts really in it?
Well, that is the question now, and I think we'll see over the next couple of days just how strong the feeling is towards a second referendum, because this has been Labour's position since their party conference last year. It was voted by party members, and Jeremy Corbyn, despite being a big believer in party democracy, has been pretty lukewarm to the idea. Back at the conference, he and John McDonnell kept forgetting to talk about it. Keir Starmer, the shadow Brexit secretary, made it clear that this was the party's position. He got a big round of applause when he talked about it. And whenever you go to Labour events like I do, you hear second referendum being talked about, and it gets a big round of applause from the crowd. So that is why John McDonnell convinced Jeremy Corbyn to take this position now that their Brexit deal died in Parliament, because they don't have the votes to get it through. But even John McDonnell yesterday sounded a little bit tepid in his support for it.
Certainly can't support no deal, which could be catastrophic. So therefore, we're saying, look, we've got a deal that we think could protect jobs in the economy, which we saw only 2 weeks ago the European Union representatives were keen to negotiate with us on. So therefore, we'll still be pushing for that, but we respect the view that if we can't get that, well, we will have to break the logjam by going back to the people.
Now, he's hedging his bets there a bit, because there are many Labour seats, that I mentioned, that did vote for Brexit, and they're still not clear yet whether or not there is an appetite now, whether there's a changing mood against Brexit that we've seen with some of the support going towards the new independent group of MPs that will take them over the line if there was to be a general election, and this is their definite position. So they are still hedging their bets. But one person who definitely is backing it is the former Labour Prime Minister, Tony Blair.
Question for Parliament is what's the right thing to do? And the risk of her deal is we're going to leave in circumstances where we don't know what we're getting. Now, by the way, Theresa May promised continually, if you remember, we would know in sufficient detail the future relationship with Europe so that we could make a decision.
Tony Blair there saying he thinks the only way to end this deadlock is to have this second referendum. And he actually admitted as well that whilst he did have sympathy for those members of the independent group, he himself would be staying in the Labour Party, and that whilst he has spoken to some of them now, he hasn't spoken to them before they broke away. But there is now this rising consensus for that second referendum, but it's not clear yet. It will have to be on the basis of the votes next week as to whether whether or not we're really in that scenario.